Good morning, evening, or afternoon, depending upon where you're at. This is Don Hester with LearnSecurity.org. We're continuing our Security Plus training. We're on Objective 1.3 today. It's me, Don Hester, and I'm joined by Robert DeRook. He's having some logging in issues right now, but he'll be in. And we want to thank Ryan for putting together the slides for us again. Just some housekeeping before we get started. If you have questions during the session, please go ahead and fill out the chat and just ask us questions as we go, and we'll answer them as we go. If you are watching this recorded, you can go to our blog, LearnSecurity.org, and you can submit a question there, and then we'll try and get back to you. And please rate this session when we're done. We appreciate the feedback. You do get CPE credit for this. BrightTalk will track your attendance, and if you go into your profile, you can see how much time that you have spent on it in a session that you can use for self-reporting for CPE, depending upon what organization that you're using it for. And you can follow us for more sessions and notifications. We're going to be doing Objective 1.4 next week, and you can check that out. And we haven't got it scheduled yet, so if you follow us on our BrightTalk channel, then you'll know about it. And then if you want to download the slides are uploaded here, and you should have that under attachments and links, where you can see what we have for you to download. And okay, go. There we go. So we're on Objective 1.3 today, and this one is talking about threat actors, basically. The whole objective is to explain threat actors, their types, and their attributes. So what types of threat actors are there, and then what attributes do they have, and then how do they do their intelligence gathering? Well, most of the time it's open source intelligence, so we'll talk about what that is. Those are the objectives for the exam. And this is the newest exam. It's 501, and this is the version 4 of that. So, and Rob, you finally made it in.
Yes.
Sorry.
I'm here.
Sorry I gave you a hassle, technical stuff. So threat actors, Rob. I always like to start off with this. This isn't in a test, but I think it's kind of important, and you can chime in on this, Rob. I think one of the things and why it's included in the exam is that you have to know your enemy, right? And Sun Tzu said, know your enemy and know yourself, and then that's how you can figure out, you'll be more successful in defense. Well, in his case, he was talking about warfare. But in defense, if you know their motives, know why they may be wanting to attack you, why you're an attractive target, and you try to mitigate those things, knowing who is the bad guy can kind of help, right? Yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, that's exactly it. Like, why are the threat actors going after your organization or you individually? Some of it is just merely to use you as a leverage point into something else, and others is to get financial information from you. But ultimately, it's what is the goal of the threat actor. If you understand that, then it's easier to start to secure things.
Yeah, and I think knowing who the bad guys are, so to speak, because we're talking from the good guy perspective, right? We have to know who the bad guys are, who we're up against, how much resources they have, how much are they really going to want the information that we have. And in some cases, I think knowing the threat actor doesn't really do a lot for us, but I think in other instances it does do a lot when we're looking at the different types of controls that we should have in an organization. So we'll talk about some of the different types of them. We're going to go over what all the different types of threat actors that Security Plus has listed in the guide, so that we make sure that we're covering everything that you need to know for the exam. And so we want to start off with one of the first ones that they have. They call it a script kiddie. So it's meant to be somebody who is a basic low-level hacker, doesn't have a lot of skills, but can follow directions. There's a lot of directions on the internet on how to hack into or break into things. There's tutorials all over the internet and on the dark web on how to do those things. So what a script kiddie is basically somebody who doesn't have a lot of skill set, but is very much interested in breaking into a system. Maybe their goal or their reason for doing it is just a sense of pride or an ego trip, you know, hey, I was able to do this, or maybe they are financially motivated. Maybe they're just disgruntled in some way. They're angry, they're looking for revenge, whatever the type of thing it is. So they're another example of basically someone who's a low level, not very sophisticated, not very skilled, but still deadly enough to break into your systems. So, I don't know, do you have anything to add to script kiddies?
They're usually easily detected because they use known scripts or vulnerabilities, right? Like they use automated tools that they find just by searching the internet.
Yeah.
They kind of do it just for the sake of figuring it out.
Yeah, a lot of people are accidental, right? You know, they say, oh, look, I can figure this out. Let me see if I can figure this out on this system. And then, you know, it kind of reminds me of like war games or something like that. Although I wouldn't think that he was a script kiddie because he was a little bit more sophisticated than that in the movie. The next category is a hacktivist or a cyber activist. They use the term hacktivist. I see both terms on the internet, so pick one. They usually are about the same, cyber activist or hacktivist. Basically what they're doing is they're typically, they may have more skills, they may have less skills, they may even be a script kiddie. What really makes a hacktivist is their goals or their motives in the hacking of whatever they're hacking or breaking into, or and generally what they're trying to do is make a political statement, or a good example of this is a city here in Northern California had their website hacked into, and somebody removed their website and put up a Free Tibet website, right? So that's a good example of a hacktivist. Their goal was not to necessarily harm the other organization. Maybe it was, but it was more to call attention to whatever the problem is that they have. You know, if they're against animal testing, maybe they hack into organization that does that for the whole sole purpose of making a statement that, hey, this is wrong, we feel it's wrong, and we want to stop that. There's been a lot of hacktivists that have been kind of on the good side and kind of on the bad side. A good example is a transit agency in California was hacked, and they lost, by hacktivists, and they lost the ability to communicate from train to train, and for a while, because the hacktivist did, I think it was a denial of service attack on it, but they brought their system down, so the communication system down. And they were trying to make a political statement that they felt that the transit agency had mishandled another situation. The problem with that in the hacktivist side of things is it became a life safety issue, right? So if you take down the trains or you take down the communication systems for the trains, then you have the potential of hurting somebody who has nothing to do with the statement that you're trying to make. So hacktivists oftentimes are just so enraged that they just think, hey, I'm just going to attack something, and they don't realize the damage that they may do could end up hurting somebody else. That is, somebody may even agree with the statement they're trying to make, but so the question is, how do they make their statement? On the other side, I've seen hacktivists who find child predators, they attack other hackers or other threat actors who are doing bad things that they don't want them to do. Some of them exposed terrorist organizations. So in that sense, you can almost say that their cause was just, right? You know, they're not hurting anybody and they're exposing the bad guys. So yay, we all like that. On the other side, maybe they are hacking somebody else, but in doing that, there is collateral damage. In a case where, like, if they take out the communications on the train and somebody has a heart attack on the train and they cannot communicate and they cannot get emergency services to that person because the communication's out, then inadvertently what they've done is they've, you know, someone's died because of their actions. So hacktivists kind of fit into that kind of a group where they have a motive, and the motive is to make a statement. How they make the statement may depending upon, a lot of it is really just how the media takes it. Do you have anything to add to that, Rob?
No, it's just usually hacktivists are just trying to bring attention to their cause, whatever that cause is.
Next one is organized crime. Now, the interesting thing is a lot of the hackers, and we're using that term as somebody who breaks into systems. Hackers, it is true, the statement or the definition of hacker used to be somebody who was a programmer, basically. They just hacked at the keys and they programmed something. Today, the popular media will use the term hacker to mean somebody who breaks into a system. So I'm just using it as that way, just for ease of sake. But a lot of the hackers that were hacking in the back, breaking into systems in the day, a lot of them were doing it for ego reasons, and or maybe they were doing it to make a statement. But that graduated into, hey, let's make some money on it. And the funny thing about organized crime is once you find a way of making money, organized crime all of a sudden becomes, especially if it's a legal activity, if there's a way to make money, they will get involved in it. And so now we find that a lot of hackers are now working for organized crime. And organized crime is now using things like the dark web to now do the things that they used to do where they didn't do it online. So it's really interesting. So organized crime, a lot of the hackers are now part of that because they want to make money. So the goal for them, obviously, is monetary. But I'd have to say on the psychology of some of that, there's also this grab for power, right? They want to be in charge. They want to be the big man or whatever it is. So organized crime definitely has the goal of generating revenue. And many of them treat it just like a business, which is kind of an interesting side note to it. Another one that we have, and I'm plugging, if you go back to our previous webcasts, we had 2 sessions on nation-state threat actors. So you can go check those out. They're a little bit more comprehensive than we're going to talk about today because there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of reasons, there's a lot of motives, there's a lot of going on, but there's a lot of nation-states that hack each other all the time, and every nation's doing it. And what they're doing and the reasons they're doing it vary slightly, but generally it is to give one nation an advantage over another, or to do espionage activities, or to augment physical warfare, or to precede physical warfare, to make physical warfare easier. What we have found, though, is there's been an increase in nation-state attacks, and some nation-states are doing it for an economic advantage. In other words, they break into companies that are in the United States to bring out proprietary information that they can then use and make black market goods or make their own goods based on the information they got from U.S. companies. In a way, they don't have to do any research and development now, do they? Right? They just bring into a company that's already done it, boom, and they've got it. And we've seen this. I'm sure you're aware of it, Rob. That China is like a big one that has been long suspected of being behind a number of the hacks that have happened to corporate America, and especially with trying to get proprietary information or research and development information that they don't have to do the R&D for. Do you have anything? You can.
No, you're absolutely right. They tend to disregard not only international copyrights, but they'll go after that information so that they can mass produce said item in China for
really
extremely
cheap.
low cost. Right.
And that gives their market an economic advantage over our market if they're not doing any research and development, right? We could call that economic warfare. Some people do. When you're stealing intellectual property and then you're using that to bolster your economy. They may do it to make money, although we don't see a lot of that. Although some ransomware that's been out there has been tied to nation states and they're accepting money. So I mean, money seems to also be a motive that they have. Also, maybe a motive is to just destroy stuff, right? Bring down systems. When Russia hacked into Ukraine, the whole idea was to destroy the systems, and that was a pre-physical warfare action that was done. So it was a part of a military campaign. It was a way to soften the target, break their communications, destabilize that country before they moved in with tanks, right? Then we also have intelligence and counterintelligence. So this is more like the spies, right? So this is more spy stuff, you know, where we're trying to look for information on their military or their intelligence and to figure out what they're doing. They can use it for propaganda or psychological warfare. We've seen that. Russia, before they invaded Georgia, used a lot of propaganda and disinformation as a way of waging psychological warfare on them and create basically political instability in the region and in that particular country. Maybe it's also just to mess with people's elections, right? So there's nation states' motives may vary, but generally it is to make their nations stronger and to make other nations weaker, whether it's to make them look weaker or to make them economically weaker or make them militarily weaker or get them to fighting amongst themselves. Those are the types of motives that they're trying to do. And again, like I said, there's a lot about nation states that we could talk about, and we have 2 previous webinars that go in depth in that, and they're we can't talk about them all together. And I'm trying to keep this short because just give you what you need for the Security Plus exam. There's other resources you can check out on our blog and other things. Competitors. Now this one wasn't listed properly, well, it's not listed as one of the objectives, but competitors may be doing it as well. Oh, this one's really talking about, well, I'm sorry. This slide is talking about competitors as nation states competing with one another, and we already kind of talked about that. AI. Now, the interesting thing is this is not listed yet as a threat actor because it's a tool of threat actors. We don't know if it's been used yet, but we're probably sure that it has in some way, even if it's just used in intelligence where they're just trying to filter out all the information that they gather and try to make meaningful information from that. But the interesting thing is AI may be a game changer for all of it. Nation states in particular, because they would have the money to spend on AI, whereas traditional organized crime is not going to be able to have access to those tools. Most of the AI is controlled by tech companies, Microsoft, Google, you know, the large companies. And when other organizations want to use AI, they go into their systems and they use it cloud-based or whatever it is. Setting up your own AI in your living room, you know, or in your evil lair, whatever, is not going to be as practical, and it's not going to be cheap. It's going to be expensive. So I don't see a lot of organizations spending, special criminal organizations spending a lot of money on it, and they're going to be at a disadvantage because once the FBI starts using AI to track them, it's going to do a much better job than traditional people are in trying to track, you know, even where funds go. And there was one article I found on the internet that they're trying to use AI to track Bitcoin transactions. So there's a way that people try to launder money in Bitcoin, and it's really hard to track, but they're thinking that AI can probably track it a lot better. And I don't know if anybody's actually implemented that. I just heard that that was something that they were working on. So that would be interesting. So talking about motives, motives vary on our threat actors. Some of them are financially motivated. Some of them are nation states, and we just talked about their reasons. Some of them have idealistic reasons. Some of them have egos. One of the things that you need to know for the test that you're taking is that they have motives, and motive really talks about how much they're willing to spend. How much time and energy are they willing to spend to get to you? I mean, revenge could be a reason too, but if you know your threat actor is some poor guy, he's not got a lot of money to spend on it, right? So if his motive is revenge, he may not have the capabilities of doing much damage. On the other hand, a nation state, if they are very motivated to attack you because you have research and development or you work in the defense sector, they are highly motivated to get into your systems because they want the information out of it. And they have very sophisticated tools and they have a lot of money to do it. So on one scale, you have the script kiddies all the way down there, don't have a lot of monetary resources, don't have a lot of skills. Their ability to hack you is not going to be that great. And you have nation states on the other side that are highly skilled, high amount of money that they have available to them, high skill sets, being able to really launch an attack. As an individual or a small business, or even a local government, you really don't have the capabilities to stave off a nation state attack. If they really wanted to break into you, they would spend the money to do it. Now, the good thing about that is most nation states are probably not concerned about individuals per se, and maybe not even for small businesses or local governments. I think a lot of the local governments that end up getting hit with ransomware and stuff like that, they're just, they're just fodder. I mean, they were easy target and they're opportunity target, and that's what it was. And maybe nation states are behind it, maybe they're not. I heard a couple times that they thought that some of the ransomware that was used in some of the ransoms against some of the local governments was the same ransomware that was being used by North Korean hackers. So I couldn't confirm that, but that's, that would be an interesting thing to think that, hey, you got attacked by a foreign government. But again, I don't think they were using a lot of sophistication or trying to do that. Insider threats. So we have insider threats, and you have different reasons for insider threats. Now, these are completely different things. They're usually disgruntled people. They're upset because they feel like they've been wronged somehow, or they're something unjustly happened to them. They got passed over for their promotion. They didn't get the raise that they should have, and they, somebody else got the raise, and so now they're mad about it. Maybe their boss said something to them that was, hurt their feelings or whatever it is. They're disgruntled, right? So there's all kinds of reasons why they could be disgruntled, and they may feel like they have a right to it. They have a right to more money. If you're not going to give it to me, then I'm going to start selling your stuff, your information, your data. Maybe they feel like they were, wronged, and they feel like they need this is your punishment, so they feel justified in doing that. And this says a lot. So if you think about this, you're looking at this insider threat. They're disgruntled. They feel wrong. They feel like they have a sense of justice, or they feel like they're not getting paid enough, so they need to get paid more. So when you look at from that point of view, the first thing that we can look at is say, okay, if that is the case, and this is where your motive is really important, if that is the case, what can we do as an organization to look at insider threats and to kind of reduce insider threats? So knowing that, Rob, what would you do? I mean, what would be one of the things that you would do, knowing that one of the things that insiders are is they're wronged, or they feel disgruntled, or they feel they're underpaid? What kinds of things can we do to kind of prevent that? And why is knowing this really important? Because then we can address it.
That's a really good question. Sometimes it's difficult to pinpoint who that insider threat is, but ultimately it comes down to the organization itself has to be transparent with the users. They have to value every employee in the organization to help kind of thwart this. Now, the other thing about insider threats is it might be a situation where a employee has been hired by an organization even though they technically work for a competing organization. And I usually bring this one up when I teach this. Even though it's an insider threat, it falls under that whole corporate espionage thing. They get hired in as, let's say, as a janitor, but there's no vetted process. There's no background checks for any of the employees to make sure that they actually, one, are who they say they are, and two, that the information they're presenting as part of their resume is actually valid. Those things have to be done and checked out. Because this way, this particular threat actor can easily you know, deposit a USB on a machine, for example, and start exfiltrating data out.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Like, especially on the corporate espionage side of things, every standard out there, whether it's NIST or ISO or COBIT or all the different standards and guidelines that are out there, all of them say that you should be doing background checks on people before you hire them, right? There's something called negligent hiring and negligent retention. And negligent hiring means that the company hired somebody they shouldn't have, that wasn't skilled or was, felonies or whatever. Like, can you imagine if a bank hired someone to work for the bank who had been convicted of embezzling money, right? So if they didn't do a background check and they hired somebody, they would consider that negligent hiring. If they found out about it and they kept them on, then that's negligent retention, right? So those are the types of things that organizations have to be careful about. And knowing this, we can figure out, hey, we should do background checks, right? So this is why knowing the motives of them can kind of help. Knowing that there may be disgruntled people, you're right, Rob. You have to take care of your employees. You can't treat them like shit. I mean, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that, but you know what I'm saying? You shouldn't treat them bad. You shouldn't make them, whatever your compensation strategy is, should be fair. Now, what may be fair and what people think is fair is two different things. So, you got to be, transparency is really good, but then also, most local governments, in fact, everybody's payment is public knowledge. How much you get paid is public knowledge. So in those instances, that transparency works there. Why won't it work in a corporate environment? Anyways, things to note about that. The insider threat can be something that they do intentionally or unintentionally. So insider threat could be they just make a mistake, right? Or they are actually trying to do something. So unintentional mistake is they accidentally do something or they accidentally don't do something. For example, in the next line I put could be action or inaction. So let's talk about one that's action, one that's inaction. Unintentional action. Maybe you misconfigured a computer and it leaves it open and then somebody was able to hack into it because of the misconfiguration. That's something that was an action and it was unintentional. The other thing can be, it could be unintentional based on inaction. Maybe you have a new vulnerabilities found in your SQL database and a patch is available, but in inaction you do not apply it, and because you did not apply the patch to it, someone's able to hack into it. In both cases, it's unintentional. One was by action and one was by inaction. And the insider threat was not, it wasn't malice, right? It was accidental. We would categorize that under there. So insider threats vary along the lines. So what can you do about the unintentional inaction? Well, now that you know that that's a potential reason why an insider may leave you vulnerable, you can then say, okay, this is why we have policies and procedures, and this is why we want to make sure that admins follow those procedures and policies, right? That they patch things within 30 days. We put that into procedure and we make sure that they do it. And then we don't have to worry about the unintentional inaction that leads to a vulnerability. See how it all fits together? I mean, hopefully that makes it clear for you why motives are so important for us to kind of look at and then figure out what kind of mitigation we're going to do against them. And finally, people could just be negligent. They just don't care, right? If someone hacks this, it's at work, I don't care. I'm going to click on every link. Well, that's very negligent for an employee to just do that, to just say, hey, I don't care, so I'm just going to do this. That's more of apathy than being disgruntled, right? To say, like, I don't care, so I'm just going to do whatever. There's been lots of insider attacks. This is just a list from 2018. Give you an idea of some of the things that are happening. There's some crazy stories out there, too. There was a story, I think there was a guy in north central area of the United States. He got let go, and so he ended up getting on the dark web. He started a denial of service that he would sell to other people, and then he would go out and attack other sites to bring them down with a distributed denial of service attack, which we talked about in a previous webcast if you want to go check that, what a distributed denial of service attack is. And then he also just attacked his former employers. So that was one example of somebody who was disgruntled and did that. There was another example, and I thought I had it in here and I don't see it, and maybe it's further on. There was an employee who, not an employee, he was a job applicant. He got turned down, and this was in Australia, and he hacked it. He was applying for a job at a sewer factory, right? And he got turned down for the job, so he decided, well, I'm just going to attack them and release all the sewage into the water. So he turned off the systems and did that. And he wasn't even an insider, really. He wasn't hired, so he's kind of more of an outside person, and his whole goal was revenge, right? So some might feel like they do it. Now, I like to talk about this too, because a lot of cyber criminals treat their enterprise as a business, to the point that they even have customer service to assist victims. So the funny thing is, like a lot of ransomware attacks that happen, they even have a customer service line, because they're going to help you go buy Bitcoin, and they're going to help you, they'll even give you instructions on how to decrypt your information, and they'll provide you with some support to do that. And one of the reasons for that, if you think about it, they have money is the motive, right? So if money is their motive, they want people to know that if you pay the ransom, you're going to get your data back. They want people to know that, because that means more people will then become victims and willingly pay, because they know that they can get their information back. So they have a vested interest in doing this. Two, getting Bitcoins and all that, if you're not familiar with it, can be kind of a little bit of a process. You could learn it, but it would take you some time. So having someone to help them out, that's also another way to ensure that they're going to get a payment, or get a payment faster. Because the longer people wait for it and they just realize, oh, maybe I don't need all the data, or maybe I can recover from backups, or I can try the backups, while we're trying to figure out how to do Bitcoin, that gives them too much time. The criminals want you to pay as soon as possible, right? So you don't think about it, and someone persuades you not to pay, right? So a lot of them have customer service. And the whole reason for the customer service is just to basically keep customers, right? So it's kind of an interesting thing. And, you know, the funny thing is, I wish they had a reputation, right? Because, you know, if you pay the ransom, you know, they need Yelp for hackers, right? So if you pay them, you want to know whether or not they're going to give you your information back or not. Now, it'd be nice if you knew that, but sometimes you're not going to know that. So you're gambling. And I think RSA 2 years ago, the statistics that they had is about 75% of people got their information back, or they got the decryption keys. 25% did not. So you got a 75% chance, based upon those stats, of getting your information back if you pay. However, if you pay, you are then doing what? You're telling criminals that crime pays, and guess what they're going to keep on doing? They're going to keep on doing ransomware. And guess what? As with all businesses, return customers are always appreciated. So guess what? If they've hacked you once and they got you in ransomware, you're a target again. They may wait a year. They already figured out how to get into you once. They're going to try again to get you to pay again. And a lot of places that have paid once have been hit twice. So I don't remember exactly what the statistics are on that. You look at our YouTube channel, I think we talked about that a couple of years ago. Well, we had all the statistics. I just don't remember it off the top of my head. A lot of this, especially with organized crime, is also kind of, it has like market forces. Just like the market, you know, if there's competition, and organized crime groups and hacker groups will fight against each other. And we had one hacker group break into another hacker's systems who was competing with them, and then found all their keys for their encryption and then published them on the internet. So basically kind of put them out of business. So they do have market forces like that. They do have to invest in research and development, because they have to spend a lot of money to try to come up with new ways to get around the anti-malware and the antivirus software that we have, how to get past the firewalls, get into the networks. So they're trying to figure all that kind of stuff out. And in some instances, again, this was at one of the sessions at RSA, they talked about they spend almost as much as 50% of the money that they bring in from their activities. They spend that on research and development. In other words, figuring out, just like a business would. If you think about it, and like I said, they treat it like a business. So when you think about cyber crime, cyber criminals, organized crime, think of like regular businesses, and the same thing that motivates regular businesses motivates them. Spending money on research and development, we talked about that. That is one of the things that they do. Now that's cyber criminals. They're doing research and development because they want to make more money. Nation states will spend a lot of money in research and development so that they can improve their craft, right? So different kind of reasons there, but they both will spend time on research and development. If you think about it, even script kiddies do that, right? They got to go on Google and they got to look up, how do I hack into cameras, So everybody's going to spend some amount of time on research and development. The question is how much, right? And then doesn't really talk about what their motives are. Now, with all businesses, you want to diversify, right? Can you make more money in different ways? So the ways that a lot of times organized crime makes money, one way obviously is they breach your network, they grab all the data, like the Equifax hack that happened, and then they can sell that information on the black market, right? Now, there's a certain amount of money they can make on the black market by doing that. Now, the problem that is they have to break into a system that then exfiltrate the data out of the system. Now they have to take that information and then put it on the dark web and sell it, right? So there's a lot of back and forth on that. Ransomware is different. All you have to do is get into your system, lock your system out, wait for you to pay, and then give you a key. So for them to make money, it's far easier to do ransomware than it is to break in, get the data, and then try to sell it on the black market. And they could probably make more money, because who's willing to pay for your information more than you? And if you think about it, if Equifax had been hacked and all of our information's out there for half of America, what is it worth when another hacker breaks in and gets the same information? It's worth less on the black market. So market forces again, right? There's a saturation of information on the black market because of all the data breaches, and because of that, there's less demand for it. Ransomware is a lot easier, and that's why we've seen an uptick in ransomware, right? The other things that they can do is they can use your system to mine for Bitcoins. So they can break into your system and then have your system just, use its clock, use its CPU power to go ahead and, make money, basically, mine for Bitcoins. The other thing they can do is they can do blackmail, which is kind of like ransomware, but blackmail is usually different. They break into your system, or they send you a fake email saying that they have compromising information about you, and if you don't pay them, that they're going to, release the information. Most of the time, that's just fake. But anyways, people may hire them for revenge. So a hacker may just take up a job because, somebody else asked them to do it. Or they may sell it like a service, like the guy that I was talking about that used a denial of service. He set it up and then sold it to other people that wanted to do denial of service against other organizations. One of them that's really interesting, too, is they can use hacked systems as a botnet to create likes or follows for people. Now, this one's interesting because it's all about marketing, right? So you're on Instagram and you want more likes, and you see a little ad that says, hey, click here and we'll give you 5,000 likes. By 5,000 accounts that are fake. They're run from different locations on the internet because it's a hacked camera somewhere. Unbeknownst to the person doing it, they pay for these likes and they're not realizing that it's being run by a camera or something like that, and it's a fake account. Organizations are trying to find fake accounts on social media, but people are selling that information. The other thing, if somebody breaks into information, they can also sell it to competitors or nation states as well, depending on the information they got. So there's all kinds of different ways that organized crime can kind of make money, and I'm not even talking about the traditional ways of like selling drugs or hitman or guns or whatever on the dark web, which they're already doing, right? So all kinds of alternate ways of making money with it. So that kind of gives you an idea of those things. And here's some articles about selling likes with hacked IoT devices, Internet of Things. They hack into them, turn them into botnet, make it like pages, and then they sell you the likes. which is kind of, I don't know, a lot of people pay for that kind of stuff, and they get like 5,000 likes, but it's like nobody really knows. It's all fake stuff. So always looking for alternate ways of revenue. What if a ransomware developer says, hey, why should I even try to break into systems and ransom the system? They may not pay. Why don't I sell the software to other hackers and make money for it, right? So again, they have any way that they can kind of make money, they try to make money, right? So if it's cyber criminals, organized crime, revenue's the whole reason for the most part, and they're going to do every different type of way. In fact, they've broken into systems, taken the data out, encrypted it, held it for ransom, and why it was held for ransom was mining for Bitcoins. All three at once, right? Three different ways of making money off of the one system. They exfiltrated the data. They'll try and sell that on the dark web or wherever they're going to do. They have your system locked out for you to pay for it. And then on top of that, they're also mining for Bitcoins or whatever cryptocurrencies out there. So it's interesting, their mindset, very ingenious. So when you think about it, organized crime, anyone's a target, because even individuals, and now individuals, they're not going to charge as much. So low-hanging fruit. And what we found, though, is ransomware folks, and was an article just last week or the week before, they charge local governments more for ransom than they do businesses of the same size. Because they usually have better insurance, they have more availability to funds, and so they charge them more. So that means that you're a sweet target, because they want to hit local governments rather than the small businesses, because the small business may just say, well, I can't pay for it, we're going out of business, right? Local governments can't just go out of business, right? So anyway, so that kind of gives you an idea of their motivation on that. There is competition between cybercrime organizations. We talked about that. There's competition between nation states too. Different nation states trying to break into different systems. And when we found out that the Russian antivirus company had been infiltrated by, Russian nation state, the United States found out because another nation had broken into that same organization's network and had found out about it, right? So it's interesting. So there's a lot of different competition going on, but then sometimes, sharing the information happens as well. Now, some of the hackers will actually have code of ethics, which is interesting. Some hackers say, hey, we make money and we don't care if anybody gets hurt. And others say, no, you shouldn't hurt people, we're just here to make money. And so there was some fighting back and forth between some hacker groups talking about when they ransomwared hospital systems. And so they ransomwared hospital systems. The problem when you take an IoT devices in a hospital and you put up for ransom, hospitals are likely to pay because they have a life safety issue, right? They have to get the monitors back up and running. They got to, someone could die, because of it. Some hackers think that that's unacceptable, and they say, and one of them said to the other one, hey, I hope your mother's in the hospital when you do that, basically. So there is some not necessarily, there is competition, but there's also a code of ethics, and I don't know how well they maintain that, but there is a sense of some type of justice there, even though they do criminal activities. So it's interesting. Now here's another one, and this one is not, again, this is on the test, but this is another one that's kind of an interesting story. So this guy gets a garage door that he, uses his phone to control. So he can open his garage door, close his garage door, and I guess that's it from his phone. The garage door has to connect to the internet, and then your phone connects to the internet to the same site, and then you can control your garage door with it. Now, so you spend a lot of money on it, and then let's say you give the company a bad review, and then let's say the company says, oh, we'll just turn you off. You can't use your garage door anymore. And that's what happened to this one. I guess he gave him a bad review, and the garage door company said that's not fair, so now you can't use it anymore. So I don't know if that's just a terms of use thing or if we want to call them a threat actor or not, but I figured I'd put that in there because it's kind of an interesting story on that one. This is the one about well, it's more of an outsider, not insider, but it was a revenge motive. This is the guy that didn't get the job, and so he let the raw sewage go out into the rivers. So, anyways. And then kind of the last thing that's on the exam, and I'll let Rob talk a little bit about this as well, is just open source intelligence. And what do we mean by open source intelligence? You want to handle that, Rob?
Well, sure. It's basically going out to publicly available sources to harvest cybersecurity intelligence, right? Reported sites. And there's a ton of them that are out there. And a lot of them will post things like latest viruses that are being dispatched, latest attack vectors that are being used, areas or locations that they see an increase in actual attacks against particular industries or silos within industries, things like that. Again, a lot of it is just publicly available to you. Bring up your favorite search engine and start searching for websites, security blogs, things like that, where a lot of it will be posted. Usually some good ones to start off with would be like SANS, for example. They have an entire resource and research department there, and they post a lot of stuff. There's a lot of bloggers out there that you can follow, and they post information once the information has been released, but it's also been verified, right? This goes back to something that we've mentioned a couple of times in the past, and that is trust but verify. So when they get this information, they don't immediately just post it. They actually go through and verify that that information is actually correct. And that's all part of that entire open-sourced intelligence gathering. And you'll learn over time that there are some sites that you see that tend to get updated information relatively sooner than some other sites. And you'll start following those or start relying on those sites more often than others. But again, trust and verify. That's probably the key to open source intelligence.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that we have about it, one of the interesting things about open source intelligence, there may be so much data out there and available to you. One of the things that people do will scour social media for employees of an organization to case, I always call it case the joint before you attack, right? So if you decide you're going to target an organization, you can go on LinkedIn and find out who works there, see if they have any weaknesses, see if you find out their Facebook page, find out whatever you can about the employees of it, and then use that information for phishing attacks, right? That's one way of doing it. So social media is a vast ocean of information that they have access to, and they can find out a lot of information that they can use, maybe even compromising information. Now, sometimes with all intelligence gathering, sometimes it's difficult to evaluate the sources when they're found, like where did this come from, how reliable is it? Is it disinformation or is it not? One thing that you can do against open source intelligence is to put out disinformation, right? You specifically put out disinformation. Now, corporations typically don't do that, not to the extent that like maybe governments do, nation states. Nation states might put out disinformation and say, hey, we're working on this nuclear project when they're not, right? To give a tasty morsel out there for somebody else to try and get that information. And then they can watch and see if that people are trying to get that information or not, maybe in a honeypot or some other type of thing, and try and capture who's trying to get information out of them. Now, what's interesting about this, now this is a great application for artificial intelligence, right? So we can use artificial intelligence to kind of look over and scour everybody's social media accounts very quickly, faster than a person can, and come back with, like, what their interests are or where they were at such times and all that kind of stuff. How much do they work, all that kind of stuff that they can use potentially in their attack. Now, generally, it's completely legal to do this, right? You're just going on the internet and you're looking for what's openly available to you. Marketers do this all the time. and they use AI to do it as well. In other words, they want to find out, like, what's your search history? So Google figures out what your search history is because you use them. And because they know what your search history is, they know how to send ads to you. So that's kind of benign. That's not, they're not attacking you. They're trying to do anything malicious. They're just trying to send you targeted advertising to get you, right? However, in some countries, if you're trying to find out information about their military or government stuff, it is illegal in those countries to try and do that. So you have to be kind of careful about those types of things, especially if you're traveling to other countries. But generally, you know, if you're just looking up people or businesses, it's completely fine to do that. It's generally legal. So now, where you cross the lines, you break into a system or you do something like that, then that becomes a felony. You broke into a system. It's a different type of deal altogether. Now, there's something else that's kind of close to this. This is not specifically called out in the exam, but I want to put in there. It's called competitive business intelligence. And the whole idea about this is defining, gathering, analyzing, and distributing intelligence from public sources using no illegal activities or espionage, not hiring someone to go work for a company to get information out of it, but you want to target products, customers, and competitors, right? Try and find out everything you can about products, customers, and competitors. It's perfectly legal to go and park your car out in front of their factory and see all the, you know, trucks that go in and the companies that those trucks are coming from. If you wanted to figure out what, you know, the secret ingredients in Dr. Pepper are, you can't break into their system and then figure out the recipe, but you can watch all the trucks drive into their factory and see what, if you can figure out where their companies are coming from and what they sell, then maybe you figure out what the recipe is, right? You know what I mean? Think those types of things. No illegal activities, no espionage. You can find a lot on the internet and social media too. Maybe you figure out what their customers are. Maybe you figure out what your competitors are. And basically the whole point of the competitive business intelligence is to aid and support executives and managers in making decisions for your organization, right? So that's a good application of open source intelligence gathering. It was called competitive business intelligence long before open source intelligence was even coined. So this is kind of like the grandfather of the open source movement. But the open source intelligence movement is growing because there's just so much information available on the internet. Just using that information, again, it can be used for good. Well, some people would argue with that, but good for, you know, organizations for marketing or figuring out, hey, why is that company going to stop using X kind of batteries in their cars? Did they figure out a problem? Maybe we need to switch ours too, right? You know what I mean? So it can help organizations do that. So anyways, intelligence gathering is something that's been around for a long time. And gosh, I want to say that there was all kinds of stories when I was in school learning about this. It goes back to the 1800s where people broke into, this one guy went to work for this company back in the early 1800s, went to work for the company in England, and they came to the United States and then set it up here in the United States, right? You know, because he was kind of like, and then there was all kinds of laws against exporting technology at that point in time because it almost put that company out of business, right? So it's kind of interesting to hear that this has been around for a long time. It's not just new type of things. Any questions, please fill them out. Do you have anything else to add, Rob?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything in the threat actor world.
Yep. Remember, check out our blog, learnsecurity.org, and this webinar, again, just as a reminder, is suitable for continuing education, for self-reporting, and you can have evidence from Bright Talk that you watched the whole entire thing, so you can do that as well. Just our one plug, Mays & Associates, we have cybersecurity services of all different types. You can check out maysassociates.com/cybersecurity for more information. And then we'd like you to please rate this session, follow our channel, follow our blog. If you want to contact us, you can send us an email from the blog. I want to thank you and have a good day. Anything last words, Rob?
Nope.
All right.
Got it.
We'll see you next week.